Hey guys, here is our flight from yesterday, January 30th, 2021. Um, I like this view. It just shows the total task that we flew yesterday. That was a great flight. This what you see right now, I have it synchronized where it's real time. So where it is right now, looks like Bruce and Steve. They're in red. They had already taken off from Seminole Lake. I had just gotten off tow. I'm in blue. When I went back and looked at it, I actually got off at about 1500. And Randy, who is in green, is on the ground. I think he was waiting for the tow plane to get refueled. But what was real neat to me about this whole flight yesterday was how we were able to stay together the whole flight. And most of you know it's it's a lot harder than you would think for gliders to stick together in a group like that. But I think we all did a great job. So here we go. I'll kick it off. And I was fiddling around with my radio here trying to get it to work and gave up on it and ended up having to use my handheld most of the flight. And I tried to reach out to Bruce a few times, and I think it just doesn't have the range to reach him. But somewhere, Bruce, as you got closer to the trailer park, I started to hear you on the radio, and then finally we got connected, I think, right about here. And I saw you and flew over, and we just kind of hooked up, and we're waiting for Randy to launch. And there he goes in green. A lot of thermals. I think we all were just kind of feeling out the clouds to see where it looked like the lift was the strongest. And I think right here we decide it's time to go. Yeah, it looks like who's that? Oh, I was in the lead for a little bit. Bruce is in red. Randy's in green. I like this view because you can really see how strong the wind was pushing us back when you thermal. So you try not to spend too much time circling there. We all made it down to Midway. No big challenges. And I think here we made a decision to head on to Flanders, and I'll pause it for right there. Something happened here. I honestly don't know what it was at this point. I don't know if I accidentally put in Seminole Lakes into my computer. You can see I made a big left turn, and this is where I called out on the radio to Bruce and to Randy, going, "Where are you guys going? I thought you all were heading way off course." And I actually went back in my computer. It said I was going to Flanders, but the line definitely wasn't pointing there. And I just re-entered. I did a direct or a go to Flanders, and all of a sudden the course got corrected, and I was like, "Oh, those guys know where they're going." So right about here, I got back on course with you guys. So we're all heading to Flanders. Oh, I want to pause right there. This is something you don't get to see every day. Me making left-hand thermals, left-hand turns in a thermal without being forced to because I flew into another group of gliders. I actually decided to do one left-hand turn during this flight, and that was it. So you all get to see it real time. Here we go. And then I did a right one just because. All right, here we are getting into Flanders. Great, we all found each other. I think this is where the fires were. And I was a little lower than you guys. I noticed you all were probably about 500 feet higher, and you seemed to be connected into that fire, into the heat. I had to drift further out at my altitude, but I did finally get connected with it. Got to you all's altitude, and off we head to where we head in Seminole Lake. That's kind of cool. I think we pretty much flew the full distance without having to stop and recharge up to Seminole. And here we are heading up now towards Grassroots. And again, we did a great job staying together. Seemed like if one of us found a thermal, we all jumped on board. That's the benefit of flying together. And everybody took off for Grassroots. And I'm going to pause it here while I realign it. And right about here, yeah, right about here is when I heard Bruce on the radio say he's heading back to Seminole Lakes. And what I noticed on that glide, and it looks like none of you stopped at thermal. It was just dead smooth as we were heading up to grassroots. And my computer right about here was telling me, I think I'm at 4,000 right now. It said I would get to grassroots at about 2,800, and it was really soft. And I decided, you know what, I didn't want to land out at grassroots. It had been such a good day. So this one I got on the radio, and I think I called Randy. I said, Randy, what's it like up there? Are you feeling any activity, any thermals? And he was like, no, it's pretty weak. And this is where I made the decision to just hit the outer boundary on that turn point and turn around and start heading back toward Osborne, because we had flown through a lot of good bumps back there. So I figure I'll just go back there and start heading back to Zephyr Hills. So I got Bruce on the radio and asked him to let Randy know I was turning. And here we go. So right here I turned around. Randy went west, and looks like he actually found a very good thermal out there. I headed back to where I planned, up around Osborne, and Bruce looks like he found something west of there. And good news is we all were able to find some good thermals and get nice and high. And you see Bruce and I cross. I never saw you, Bruce, but we crossed paths there. And I'm going to pause here for a second. Looks like, Randy, you're looking at on the far right-hand side. I should have said that. The colors are coordinated to your altitude. So Randy, you're up, you got up almost, I think you got to 5,500 back towards grassroots. And here you're only down at like 4,500, so you're still nice and high. I was a little lower than I wanted to be to head across the swamp, but there were plenty of clouds, and I seemed to be getting a lot of bumps, so I wasn't too worried to start across the swamp there. And I figure if I had to, I could bail out to the east and pick up Seminole or Burntwood or anything. But you and I both had committed to heading back to Zephyr Hills, and what stood out to me was how strong the headwinds were. I don't know what the CU is showing me, only 11 knots, but I know my computer was saying 19 when I was up at 4,500. So it was a stiff headwind all the way back. But here we go. We're both making our run to back to Zephyr Hills. You can't see it; it's off screen now. But Bruce and Steve have just landed back at Seminole, and I recharged and got up to a nice altitude. I had final glide here. Looks like Randy's doing the same thing back midway across the swamp. And here we both go. And here we go. I'm entering the pattern. Right about here, I heard Mike Hackerson, saw Mike Hackerson actually, so I made a turn out there just to give us some spacing. I dropped in right behind him, and just a minute later, Randy, I saw him in the pattern, and he jumped in and landed. So guys, that was a great flight. That's the kind of cross-country flights we all want to see. I hope we get to do a lot more. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.